Hello everyone, wishing you relaxing moments while watching this video. After surviving terrifying storms that nearly destroyed an entire life, Tieu Hue was finally brought back to the safest place she knew. But could her heart truly find peace while standing before a Tuanon whose identity was completely different from the man she once knew? Or would his wealth and status become an invisible barrier separating two souls that had only just found each other? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us and continue following the next dramatic. After the intense rescue and escaping from the dangerous group of violent men, Tuanon brought Tieu Hue back to the small house in the mountains. This had once been a peaceful shelter, the place where the lost young woman first found protection and warmth deep in the forest, but now the atmosphere between them had completely changed. Tuanon's true identity as a wealthy young master, a man capable of spending $200,000 to buy back her freedom, had now been fully revealed. Because of that truth, nothing between them felt as simple as the days they once spent planting vegetables and working side by side in the garden. Tieu Hue stepped into the familiar house carrying a heavy heart. Her legs trembled not only from the fear she had just experienced, but also from the growing insecurity slowly consuming her soul. She could no longer look directly into Tuanon's eyes, constantly lowering her gaze toward her rough and worn hands. Inside her mind, the image of the powerful man wearing an elegant suit while standing fearlessly before the criminals felt completely different from the humble gardener she once knew. The inferiority inside her heart became stronger with every passing moment. Tieu Hue suddenly felt that the small mountain house no longer truly belonged to her. She began thinking about her painful background, a poor girl abandoned by her own family and burdened with endless debt. The enormous difference between their social status convinced her that she could never be worthy of standing beside someone as important and respected as Tuanon. Every breath she took inside his presence now made her feel as though she owed him something she could never repay. It was no longer only a financial debt, but also a debt of dignity, sacrifice, and social position. Silence slowly filled the small house while the sound of wind passing through the mountain forest echoed outside, signaling the beginning of a painful emotional struggle growing inside the heart of the young woman. Inside the silent mountain house that once felt peaceful and warm, only quiet sighs and the heavy weight of unspoken emotions remained. Tieu Hue sat curled into the corner of the chair, her fingers tightly intertwined until they turned pale from tension. Filled with hesitation and overwhelming emotion, she looked up at Tuanon with tearful eyes before quickly lowering her head again, unable to bear the painful reality standing before her. Gathering all her courage, she softly confessed to him with a voice trembling from insecurity that she did not deserve to be rescued and that she was only a poor girl unworthy of someone with the status of a young master like him. Her painful confession shattered the fragile silence inside the house, exposing the deep emotional distance she had built inside her own heart ever since discovering his true identity. Tieu Hue suddenly felt insignificant, like a grain of sand standing beside the wealth, power, and elegance surrounding Tuanon's life. To her, the fact that he had already risked everything to save her from the dangerous criminals felt like a miracle far beyond anything she deserved. Because of that, she refused to become a burden or a stain upon the perfect life of someone as respected and important as him. Her feelings of inferiority became even stronger when she firmly rejected the idea of Tuanon paying her debt. $200,000 was an amount she believed she could never repay, even if she spent her entire life working or sacrificed everything she had. Yet Tuanon had offered it without hesitation simply to protect her freedom and safety. Trembling as she shook her head, Tieu Hue tried to resist with the last bit of dignity she still possessed. She believed that saving her life once was already too much, and she could not allow herself to owe him even more. Deep inside, she feared that if she accepted such enormous help, their relationship would no longer feel like sincere love, but instead become an act of charity and gratitude she could never repay. Every tearful word and painful rejection revealed the deep insecurity Tieu Hue had hidden for years. As a girl abandoned by her own family and once treated like an object by her brother, her soul carried countless scars left by humiliation and betrayal. Now, standing before Tuanon surrounded by wealth and status, those emotional wounds hurt more than ever. She would rather return to a life of hardship and danger than continue standing beside him while feeling so painfully unequal. Every sentence she spoke was not only a refusal, but the heartbreaking cry of a wounded soul desperately trying to protect the final pieces of her self-respect before the overwhelming kindness of the man she loved. Tuanon looked deeply into the eyes of Tieu Hue, the young woman trembling before him under the weight of overwhelming insecurity. He refused to let the silence continue any longer because he understood that if he did not speak now, the distance between them would become an endless gap impossible to overcome. Slowly stepping closer, Tuanon broke the heavy atmosphere with a warm and sincere voice. He told her that he had not rescued her out of pity, but because he loved her. Those words struck directly into the painful self-doubt consuming Tieu Hue's heart. Tuanon continued speaking, every sentence carrying the weight of absolute sincerity and commitment. He explained that he paid her debt not to make her feel indebted to him forever, and that he never expected her to repay the money. More than anything, he wanted her to understand that her value in his eyes had nothing to do with debt, wealth, or social status. To him, what truly mattered was the pure and beautiful soul of the woman he had spent so much time living beside in the mountains. The only thing Tuanon wanted now was not gratitude, but the chance to stand proudly beside her as the man who loved her. With complete honesty, he confessed that he wanted her to agree to become his girlfriend. He admitted that his feelings had not suddenly appeared after the dramatic rescue, but had slowly grown from the very first days they shared life together on the mountain. He loved the way she carefully cared for every plant in the garden. He admired the quiet strength hidden behind her fragile appearance. He cherished the simple meals they shared together, meals that were poor in material things but filled with warmth and humanity. Tuanon explained that wealth and the identity of a wealthy young master were only superficial things that never truly mattered to him. What he had been searching for all this time was a sincere love untouched by selfishness or greed. And in his eyes, Tieu Hue was the perfect person fate had brought into his life. He did not need an elegant rich woman from a wealthy family. All he wanted was a kind and caring woman, and that woman was standing right in front of him. Every heartfelt confession from Tuanon became like gentle drops of water slowly healing the dry and wounded soul inside Tieu Hue. For the first time, the walls of insecurity she had spent years building around herself began to shake and slowly break apart. Tuanon understood that if he truly wanted Tieu Hue to release the heavy burden inside her heart, he needed to be completely honest about everything, including the secrets he had carefully hidden for so long. With a calm and emotional voice, he began confessing the truth and apologizing to Tieu Hue for hiding his real identity from the very first days they met. He explained that it had never been a cruel lie, but rather a way to protect his own heart after experiencing painful disappointments in the past. Tuanon slowly shared the story of his former life as a wealthy young master. With bitterness in his voice, he admitted that in the glamorous world of wealth and status, many women had approached him only because of money, fame, and the luxurious life his family could provide. Those relationships left him feeling empty and slowly destroyed his faith in genuine love. He no longer believed people could love someone sincerely for their soul rather than for material wealth. Because of those painful experiences, Tuanon eventually made a bold decision. He pretended that his family had gone bankrupt and abandoned his luxurious life in the city to move into the mountains and live as a simple gardener. His only purpose was to search for a sincere love untouched by greed or selfishness. Looking directly into Tieu Hue's eyes, he gently held her rough and fragile hands while begging her not to feel ashamed of her poor background. To Tuanon, Material poverty had never been the measure of a person's value. He firmly explained that what he had truly wanted all along was never a wealthy and elegant rich woman. All he had ever searched for was a kind woman capable of caring, understanding, and sharing life with him. And in his eyes, that perfect woman was none other than Tieu Hue herself. Every sincere confession from Tuanon became like a new light shining into the darkness inside Tieu Hue's wounded heart. For the first time, she realized that he also carried pain, loneliness, and fears of his own. His decision to live as a gardener in the mountains was proof of how deeply he longed for a simple but genuine happiness. Tuanon's honesty about the real reason he came to the mountains helped Tieu Hue finally understand that there was no true distance between a wealthy young master and a poor village girl. There were only two wounded hearts searching for love, understanding, and peace together. His words not only removed the misunderstandings between them, but also created the strong foundation of trust upon which their future love could finally begin to grow. Tieu Hue stood speechless as she listened to the heartfelt confessions coming from Tuanon. Every word he spoke felt like a wave of warmth, gentle yet powerful enough to slowly melt the frozen walls of insecurity surrounding her heart for so many years. The moment she realized that this wealthy and respected man did not see her with pity but with sincere and deep love, Tieu Hue could no longer hold back the emotions overflowing inside her. She burst into tears, streams of happy tears running down her thin cheeks as they washed away years of humiliation, suffering, and fear about the uncertain future ahead. At that moment, Tieu Hue suddenly understood that the life she once believed had already ended after betrayal and endless pursuit could still open into a beautiful new chapter. Looking deep into her own heart, she finally admitted that she too had fallen completely in love with Tuanon from the very first days they shared life together in the mountains. The love she had hidden for so long beneath fear, poverty, and insecurity now rose powerfully to the surface under the light of Tuanon's honesty and sincerity. The feelings of inferiority about her poor background and her belief that she was an unworthy girl slowly disappeared from her mind. She finally understood that Tuanon did not need wealth, status, or perfection from her. All he truly wanted was a kind and caring woman, and that woman was simply the real Tieu Hue herself. The strength in his words and the unwavering determination in his eyes helped her rediscover her own value as a person. After so many painful emotional struggles, Tieu Hue finally made the most important decision of her life. Wiping away her tears, she looked directly into Tuanon's eyes with trust and love shining clearly within her gaze. She decided to throw away every chain created by the past and every fear caused by social status in order to follow the powerful call of love. With a gentle nod, Tieu Hue officially agreed to become Tuanon's girlfriend, opening a new chapter where sincerity triumphed over every material barrier. This was not only her acceptance of love, but also her declaration of freedom and happiness, something she had fought to reclaim through years of tears, pain, and sacrifice. After finally confirming their feelings for each other and letting go of every barrier created by wealth and social status, Tieu Hue and Tuanon chose to return to the simple life they once shared in the small wooden house on the mountain. Gone were the elegant suits and luxurious cars, as Tuanon once again returned to the familiar image of a hard-working man dressed in simple work clothes. At the same time, Tieu Hue finally found peace within her soul after so many painful days of fear, pursuit, and suffering. Together, they woke up every morning as sunlight slowly appeared through the forest trees and returned to caring for the garden side by side, just like the very first days they met. Although they continued living the same simple life, growing vegetables and bringing produce to the market to earn a living, everything now carried a completely different meaning. Their relationship was no longer only the kindness of a man helping a woman in danger. It had transformed into a deep and genuine love built on trust, understanding, and emotional connection. Every morning they walked together toward the market, and every simple meal shared beside the warm fire became filled with laughter, comfort, and peace. For the first time in her life, Tieu Hue truly felt that she had found a real home. It was a place where she completely belonged, beside a man who loved her sincerely without caring about her painful past or poor background. Their story slowly reached a peaceful chapter among the quiet beauty of the mountains and forests, where true love had overcome every insecurity and every social barrier standing between them. At last, happiness had truly returned, bringing both of them the peace they had searched for during so many difficult years. Even though the future could still contain challenges and hardships, Tieu Hue and Tuanon believed that as long as they remained together, they could overcome anything in order to protect the small home filled with love that they had built together. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue supporting this couple and to follow the next dramatic chapters of their journey.
Tiếng cười nói khe khẽ hòa quyện cùng tiếng xào xạc của lá cây tạo nên một bản giao hưởng thanh bình của lao động. Công việc nhà nông tuy vất vả, đôi bàn tay bắt đầu có những vết chai sần và tà áo lấm lem bùn đất. Nhưng Tieu Hue chưa bao giờ cảm thấy hạnh phúc đến thế. Cô trân trọng từng giọt mồ hôi rơi xuống mảnh đất này, vì đó là mồ hôi của sự tự do, của một kiếp người đang được tái sinh từ đống tro tàn của sự áp bức. Sau khi gùi hàng đầy ắp những nông sản tươi ngon nhất, hai người lại cùng nhau gùi hàng xuống núi để kịp phiên chợ sớm. Đường rừng dốc đứng và trơn trượt, nhưng mỗi khi Tieu Hue mệt mỏi, Tuấn Anh lại lặng lẽ dừng bước chờ đợi, chủ yếu đỡ lấy phần gùi gánh nặng hơn cho cô.